mental health therapist for 20 years and has a private practice in Sanford, Florida. She helps her clients with issues such as complex trauma, depression, and PTSD. Today, Elizabeth would like to challenge us to ask ourselves, what stories are we addicted to? Please welcome Toastmasters, Elizabeth Ramirez.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters.
Good morning.
I'm often told by people that I don't really share enough about my past. Yes, retelling your story can be healing. But what if retelling your story holds you back and keeps you stuck? I don't talk about my past because I'm ashamed or I'm paranoid that it's going to be used against me. I don't necessarily talk about my past because I don't resonate with that person anymore. So how did I do that? Well, I simply changed the narrative of who I was. It sounds like a simple concept until you put it into practice. For over 20 years, I have worked with clients ranging from chronic low self-esteem to complex PTSD. And what I have found is, it doesn't matter your gender, your race, your economic background. Our troubles and our issues are quite similar in the world. My training as a therapist didn't start when I got that degree. It started when I was a child. For 18 years, I didn't know if this was going to be the day that I was going to be abused, ridiculed, abandoned, or told for the umpteenth time how ugly, stupid, and worthless I am. Sound familiar? Well, as a therapist, I often hear the same or familiar stories. So what makes a client flourish in therapy or flounder in therapy? Well, in my experience, it comes down to the story that you're telling yourself. What story are you addicted to? So I'm going to offer 4 suggestions that might, and I say might, help you change your story. Because this comes with a disclaimer. These suggestions are not going to be your silver bullet or secret formula, because you have to actually do the work. So suggestion number 1. Life isn't fair. It just isn't. It isn't a fairy tale. This is not the Lifetime channel. So you get my point. Suggestion number 2. Know your role in your story. Are you the villain, the victim, the hero, or all 3? So you have to know who you truly are. And I don't mean the boring labels that we assign ourselves to, such as parent, CEO, or a mental health therapist. What are your triggers? Who are you when you're alone and stressed out? How do you self-sabotage? What are your payoffs for your subconscious behavior? I want to share with you an example. As many of you know, my upbringing now was not idyllic, but it did afford me the ability to tune into people's energies and emotions. And while this was a great defense and survival mechanism, it also put me in quite dangerous situations. Unbeknownst to me, I was addicted to chaos and danger. This is where I felt most at home. How far could I push this situation or person? So for instance, if I know what I need to do to keep pushing you, to get a reaction, to drive you over the edge, am I the villain, the victim, or the hero? It really comes down to the story you're telling yourself. Which leads me to suggestion number 3. The only person you can change is yourself. So please stop trying to change other people. Think about a loved one, a sibling, or a child. How many hours, countless hours, have you spent trying to change their behavior because you want to feel loved, wanted, or less anxious? Did it work? Maybe temporarily. But more likely, they return back to their behavior. Because the only person you can change is yourself. And yet, this is where I met with the most resistance. Why? Because it's going to bring up all of your fears in order to change yourself, which means you might have to make a painful decision. Am I going to leave this relationship, or are they going to leave me? Suggestion number 4. Hold on to your seats, guys. Gratitude is not necessarily the path to happiness. I have a love-hate relationship with gratitude. We are taught that gratitude is the way to happiness, and the research does back that up. But how many of you grew up in a household where your parents said to you, you should be grateful that you have food on the table, or you should be grateful that you have a bus to school, because when I was your age, I had to walk 7 miles in the snow with no hat or gloves and holes in my shoes. Thanks, Dad. So I call this guilty shaming gratitude, because it keeps you in the cycle of negative beliefs. Yes, I'm grateful for my beautiful home and the food on the table, but what if this keeps you in an abusive relationship? So when I have clients that come to me and they say, I'm grateful, but now I know that gratitude is not going to work. So what I show them is this, and I write down on this every single day what has gone right. I came to Toastmasters. Roy bought me a cup of coffee. I got a great text. This is something you can do. So these are just merely suggestions. But if you learn to accept that life is not perfect, figure out the role you're playing in your story, learn to change yourself, and pay attention to what is going right, you might release the false narrative that you've been addicted to.